about it?
Well, whether it's on purpose or not, it's selective enforcement of this law. And the law has been misinterpreted to give them powers that they really don't have by the law. And old people and poor people who don't have the ability to get their place cleaned up or to hire attorneys to defend themselves, if they come out and somebody files a complaint against them, like a wealthy neighbor that doesn't like the looks of their property files a complaint, then they're threatened with a $150 a day fine up to $5,000 plus court costs. And if you're poor, you can't pay $150 a day, and so you're liable to lose your home in order to satisfy the fines. And so that's why we've gotten involved with Miss Jean Trish and Moss Delreppel, the old gentleman that had a heart attack. He got so stressed out about it because they told him he had to move everything within 10 days or they were going to take it and haul it off the county dump. And now the junk officer says he didn't say that, but we have given you a video that documents statements by his neighbors that were within an hour of the event.
I'll give you all justice!
And so we have a choice of believing the neighbors who have known him for 25, 30, 40 years, or believing the junk officer who, after he died, was looking for cover.
Now, was this something y'all fought in the beginning and you're still fighting it, or is it just the way it's been enforced and the way that they've gone about enforcing it that you've gotten involved at this point?
Well, we've fought it for a good long while because we thought we knew where it was going. But Marshall County is the first county in the state of Alabama who's actually tried to pass the ordinances and enforce this. Okay, they put very deceptive language on the ballot. You know, health and safety bill. Well, who's not in favor of health and safety? So people don't know what they're voting for. But once they voted in, then it gives them the ability to pass ordinances and enforce things like this junk ordinance and animal control and everything to their taste. So Marshall County is the first county who's actually passed the ordinance and tried to implement it, and that's why they've gotten a big negative reaction. But there are people from 6 different counties here today, as far away as Tuscaloosa County and Jackson County, who are worried about it passing in their counties, and so they've come here to try to help the Marshall County people.
This is the first county in Alabama to pass the home?
Not their passed a junk ordinance on this line under the Limited Self-Governance Act. They in turn gave them the authority to enact ordinances, so they enacted this junk ordinance. And they have the ability right now to refuse to enforce this law. They don't have the ability to, they say, that they can go to the Limited Self-Governance Act and recall it for a vote. But they do have the authority to do away with the junk ordinance or not enforce it, which they have refused to do.
What we're trying to do is get enough petitions to get it back on the ballot so that we can remove the Limited Self-Governance Acts, or the source of it.
So once the home thing is gone, then the junk ordinance will be gone. Like if y'all vote it down in 2010, is that the next, or
yes.
2010?
That is the basis for the local ordinances. If the law is gone, it's my understanding, then the ordinances passed under the law will also be gone. Okay. But we have several years here that a lot of damage is going to be done before we can get it back on the ballot. It can only be voted on once a year.
Well, can you tell me what you've dealt with and why you're so frustrated and coming to County Commission today?
Well, they wanted to address the inaccuracies that we have the right to petition and get signatures on a petition to get this Limited Self-Governance Act back on the ballot. They discussed at their last meeting that they would discuss the inaccuracies in our flyer that we sent out.
Okay.
So that's what happened today. And the Marshall County Citizens for Property Rights is how we started, and we started when the Limited Self-Governance Act was put on the ballot as a health and safety nuisance. So we think it was, the language on the ballot was bad. The people didn't know what they were voting on. And there was only, and they put it on a primary, and it was only 6,300 people maybe that voted out of 25,000. They should have put it on the ballot, a general election, and they should have also changed the language on the ballot so that people would understand what was going on.
Now, what do you, at this point, y'all are just collecting collecting signatures on the petition, and how many do you need for it to go on the ballot?
Well, I'm in the process of trying to get a voter registration list right now, and I'm thinking there's probably 25,000, and we have to have 10% of that, 2,500 people maybe, give or take, you know.
You think that'll be easy to do? A lot of people frustrated with this.
Oh, it'll be easy to do. We have quite a few already.
Okay.
Probably have enough already if they're all good.
Okay.
They're going to continue to get petitions because, you know, the more the merrier. The more people sign up, the more people get educated on what's going on, and we're passing out this DVD, which has a lot more in-depth information for people.
Do you think the problem was just people didn't know what they were voting on initially, and y'all's goal right now is just to let them know, hey, this is...
Well, exactly. I mean, when you say certain health and safety issues be carried on by the county commission out in the unincorporated areas, something to that effect. I mean, the language on the ballot had nothing to do with what this actually does. Really, this is if you get offended by somebody's junk in your yard, you can file a complaint. That's not a health and safety issue. If you build a fence where people can't see it, there's no more problem. But mosquitoes can fly over that fence, rats can crawl through that fence. It's not a health and safety issue, it's a sensibility issue, what offends you personally. And the Constitution doesn't say that you do not have the right to not be offended.
So under their junk ordinance, they haven't set any specific like guidelines for what junk is. Is it just kind of like whatever the code enforcement officer deems as junk, they can cite you for?
Well, actually, the code, the Alabama code, does stipulate exactly what junk is, but it's subject to their interpretation. And frankly, I don't think that the junk officer has even read the law or understands it right now. It's up to him to walk out and decide if your grandfather's antique tractor is a piece of junk or it's something valuable to you. There's just too much leeway into who gets to make the decisions and who controls the enforcement.
You think they're getting done wrong here?
Absolutely. They're being badly mistreated.
Good to have all y'all out for our work session this morning. We'll go ahead and get started. Next item we were going to discuss this meeting was the letters that in opposition to home rule that were sent out, the inaccuracies that been in them, where they're talking about how the commission is enforced the ordinance that was passed. Whatever how you want to go about it, you can go down the letter that they issued about before the election and Grant Mountain here, where we get people to sign petitions and go through some of the stuff that I saw that y'all want to do that way? Sure. Okay. This is in a leaflet that's mailed out to residents in the Grant Mountain area. One thing it says, government is not government. I know according to the dictionary, it is the way of governance. They talk about that the act itself did refer to government. What the governance means, you know, rules and all can be established. Governance in the dictionary, act, manner, office, or power of governing government.
Can I ask you to enunciate the word very clearly, because it sounds like it could be either governance or government.
Governance.
Okay.
The last, well, I'll read it again. Governance. Act, mannering, office or power, or governing government. You know, that's what governance is. That's according to the dictionary. So, you know, the act itself says it's a self-governance act. And that's what it is. It was giving the county commission the authority to go through the procedures that were set up in that act, to have hearings and everything according to the procedures that were set out in the act. They were followed. There were hearings held on the There were hearings held on the ordinance before the ordinance was ever voted on by the commission. Copies were put out in different places. Each commission office, district office, had copies of those ordinances that was going to be voted on. Procedures were followed according to the act itself, which gives the county commission the authority to make different ordinances. Which the only ordinance that Marshall County has made is what they would call the junk ordinance. That's the only ordinance we've passed.
What is the opposition that the commission has? I don't think you've come across that yet.
Well, it's just the way they're using terms in there. Governance is not government.
You don't like the definitions of the words? Is that the problem that you had at the last commission meeting?
That's one thing. Governance is not government. It's just a way of operating government.
Here's an issue with a definition out of the dictionary. That's a quote out of the dictionary. That is not something that we just pulled out of the air.
Okay.
That's what you're taking issue with. Webster's dictionary, or which dictionary would you prefer that we use?
Use whichever one you want to.
Okay, we'll use the one that we came out of.
Okay.
The definition of governance objected to by Chairman Fleming was published in the flyer and reads as follows: Governance is not government. It is the framework of rules, institutions, and practices that set limits on the behavior of individuals, organizations, and companies.
That's one thing that I had a question on.
Would you spell the word that's in the dictionary that you're using, please?
The same word you got in your, spelled the same identical way.
All right, but my question then, I'll identify myself. I'm Fred Lamping, but my question was that are you going to spend a lot of time worrying about the definitions of the words governance and government, or are we going to get to the issue of how and in what way these flyers or petitions were erroneous? Because at the last commission meeting, it was stated by commission members that this was an erroneous statement. The papers were wrong. We'd like to find out just why you think it's wrong. And that's the discussion I want to get to, rather than spending a lot of time on the definition of those two words.
It's not the definition so much, it's the word. In other words, governance is ruled by unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats. That's the next statement here.
And what do you take issue with that?
Unelected?
Are you elected? Were you elected?
Yes, I was elected. The District 1 Commissioner. And I was appointed to take
Okay. But,
chair.
yes, but
I
you
was
were not
elected.
elected as chairman.
I was not elected chairman, but I was elected.
Perhaps
I
that's
am
what was meant.
I am accountable, and I'm not a bureaucrat. Not by my definition. This gentleman back here.
My name's Ken Freeman. The definition that was used on that flyer actually came from the United Nations Human Development Report 1999, which is part of sustainability, which is what the Limited Self-Government Acts is a child of. What we're trying to do here is sustainable development. And this quote is an accurate quote. There is a difference between government, which is elected officials, and governance, which is like the junk officers who are bureaucrats who enforce the law. And when you have unelected officials making a value judgment, for instance, on what is and is not junk, that is not by elected officials. That is by a bureaucrat who works for the government, who is making a ruling as to what is legal and what is not legal. That was the reason that term was used. It's an accurate term.
The definition of junk is called out in the laws. That is the definition that was used for junk. And it's not the enforcement officer's duty to clarify what junk is. He has the definition there in front of it, what junk is.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Freeman.
Yes, sir.
Cite that one more time, where you got the, because I've heard this one time before, I think Paul brought it up one time.
All right. United Nations Human Development Report, 1999, page 8, which spells out sustainability, which basically is to make something last for a long time, is to make it sustainable, and if you don't allow people to use it, it lasts practically forever. So that's the point of sustainability, and what we're talking about here is outside governments moving in and telling our people how to conduct their own business. And that is an accurate definition. It depends on the age of your dictionary. If you look at a very modern dictionary or terms like this, you will find that governance is not the same thing. 100 years ago, government and governance would have been basically the same thing. They're no longer the same thing.
Yeah. I'm not arguing the point of governance. You're saying that this home rule was enacted from a...
It is following the programs called Sustainable Development, which is a treaty signed on to basically by the United States from the United Nations. Started out under actually goes way back, but Bill Clinton is the one who implemented most of it. If you want to get a real detail, Don Casey over there can give you the total history of it. He studied it thoroughly.
So you're saying that's where home rule come from?
That's where the ideas behind home rule came from. Yes, that's the founding documents. Agenda 21 out of the United Nations.
And who told you that?
I read it.
Also, it's your opinion that's where it came from?
No. It says in the documents and the preceding documents themselves that this is what will be implemented. It's not my opinion, it's stated fact.
Now you understand that the home rule is a state-wide ordinance. So I'm trying to assert, where do we get back to the United Nations from a statewide ordinance? It is either your opinion or somebody's you read opinion, that's where it came from.
That's true.
Okay. Thank you.
Legal opinions.
Could I interject since my name's been brought up? My name's Don Casey. If you want to type into any search engine on the internet, sustainable development and economic development in Alabama, you will find that the state of Alabama has a sustainability program under their economic development agency down in Montgomery. So this is a program that's ongoing, being implemented. All you have to do is just look.
Obviously, you and I can read, Mr. Casey, any documents we want to. I can draw one conclusion, you can draw another.
The Rural Alabama Cooperative Extension System includes in its Alabama Initiative of 2009 a sustainable development program which includes youth programs.
Of times from Mr. Freeman, which I've met, that is that spelled out that, hey, state of Alabama, because Bill Clinton passed something in the 80s or 90s or whatever it was, we're going to follow this doctrine, and that he is an opinion.
No, well,
it's not an opinion.
It's not an opinion. It is official policy of the federal government.
The fact that you haven't read it and studied it does not mean it's incorrect.
I'm just saying that this was not put out by Colin Powell, or was it?
Colin Powell went to the 2002 Johannesburg summit and stated that the president and the American people are following and implementing, and you can go look this up. I mean, the transcript's on the internet. He said that we are implementing sustainable development. And if you follow that, all you have to do is just type in any state, New Jersey, Portland, Oregon, they all have, Austin, Texas, all have sustainability programs, all following this very same agenda. I'm just telling you that all you have to do is look. It's not opinion.
It would have to be opinion.
No, it's not.
No, it's not opinion.
The fact that you haven't read it and studied it does not mean it's incorrect.
There's going to be some changes when we get around to it. Instead of going, I've talked to some of them, we need to change instead of coming before us, go straight to district code.
Commissioner Mays is commenting on the fact that the right to appeal to a court of law is not authorized under the Self-Governance Act. All appeals will go before the commission. Listen as Chairman Fleming corrects Commissioner Mays.
I've talked to some of them, we need to change this, they're coming before us, go straight to district court.
So that, according to the law, we may have a little trouble doing that. I think it has to come before us according to the act itself. It specifies where it will go to. So we may have a little trouble with that. Follow you in the question.
Paul Brothers. You stated that you were going into the enactments. And this started with the Limited Self-Governance Act. It was presented on a ballot as a health and safety nuisance. This was only for unincorporated areas, which we know, and y'all have affirmed, that there's some cities that voted. Billy Cannon and the commission at that day, they voted and lobbied the legislative delegation in Marshall County to get this passed. Now, I was down at the last meeting, and we have 2 new commissioners down here. They took an oath the day I was down here to uphold the U.S. Constitution and the state constitution. Therefore, Article 1, Section 35 of the Alabama Constitution states, the sole and legitimate end of government is to protect the citizen and their right to life, liberty, and pursuit of property. Any other objective is usurpation and oppression. Since you, and I'm assuming that everyone took this oath, since you took this oath to uphold the state constitution, you have an obligation to the people to leave the property alone. Under limited self-governance, you adopted a junk ordinance, whereby your enforcement officer can go on private property and take personal property off of that property.
No, sir.
This violates Article 1, Section 35 of the Constitution. I would ask the Commission, since I've studied the law that's sent down by the legislators, I would ask today that you take a vote, because you have the power to do away with the Limited Self-Governance Act as it's written in the state legislative 2005-200 that came down from the state. It gives you the authority to either vote it out, and it gives the petition of the right of the people to petition. And anything that's in this flyer went out for a petition drive. So I would ask the county commission to consider the fact that you took an oath to uphold the Constitution of Alabama.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Okay. Read that verse under the article.
Article 1, Section 35. The Alabama Constitution says, the sole and legitimate end of government is to protect the citizen and their right to life, liberty, and property. Any other objective is usurpation and oppression.
Okay. I just want to bring up this one point. I understand your argument, and I understand your opposition, Mr. Freeman's opposition, Mr. Casey I've never met, but I understand your opposition, but you make a statement that we're not following it is untrue. It was voted on, and that's everybody's rights, not just the group that you represent's rights. It's every single person's rights, and though the majority of the people in Marshall County voted on that, and I realize you have an argument that it was worded wrong or misleading wording that Fred has brought to my attention, And I understand that. And I understand that y'all make the people aware of that. But now, you can't stand there and say we're not doing our jobs when the majority of the people voted on that, and that's what we are doing. And when it is voted on in 2010 again, as me and Mr. Ware went over in my office one day, if they vote it down, then it's done. So it's not just Paul Brothers' property rights and rights of freedom. It is everybody in Marshall County's rights and rights to freedom and property. And how they view that could be obviously different from your view or Mr. Freeman's view or even my view for that matter. But that's why we call it voting. They get to vote on these ordinances.
Yeah, that's all. Andy was the next one, we called it.
I need to back up. I've had my hand up quite a bit, and I want to get back to what Mr. Strickland was saying about enforcing what people voted on. This is 14 pages of junk ordinance that nobody in this county voted on. Not one person. Not 6,300 people voted for or against. No person in the state of Alabama voted for or against. People in Marshall County voted on this. Shall the provisions of Act number 2005-200, which authorizes the county to obey certain health and safety nuisances, be applicable in the unincorporated areas of Marshall County. That's what the people of Marshall County voted on. There are no safety or health nuisances in this treasure yard. None. That's my opinion, and that should be Tommy Cole from City College. There were no safety and health nuisances in our yard.
Mr. Strickland, in regard to what you said there, I'd like to point out that the United States government is completely unique in the history of the world. We are not a pure democracy, as people would have us believe. This passed by 318 votes out of only 6,300 people, and we know that there were some people in the cities that voted that shouldn't have, but pure democracy is a very destructive thing. It's tyranny. Democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for supper. We have a representative republic whereby our representatives are supposed to protect the weak and the abused. The way this has been implemented, we have weak, old people who are being abused because they don't have the capability to correct these situations. Ms. Jean Trish here is an example. Moss Dalrymple was an example. Our government is designed to give equal protection for everybody under the law. And you keep talking about there's a small group of people who are against this. Well, I put to you that the group who truly favors this is probably as small or small. Most people don't have a position because they're uneducated.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
How many people voted?
6,300, I think, and it passed by what?
I'm asking, I don't know.
318 votes.
Okay,
And
so
some of
you
those.
acknowledge that it was passed.
Yes, it passed. But the process by which it's being implemented is not fair.
I understand. I'll recite. I understand your argument, Fred's argument, and Mr. Brothers' argument that you thought there was some discrepancies, but you know, I haven't seen it. I'm just saying I understand what you're saying, but it was voted on, no matter how many people. Because hey, look, there's elections that are voted on by less people than that in this county in the years that have passed and put people in office and took people out of office and voted for laws and ordinances for less people. Bottom line was it was voted on. And it
Well,
did pass.
let me point out the way this came to pass. The Limited Self-Governance Act was passed. It was hammered out between me and some other people in the legislature, Jack Venable, Sonny Brassfield, County Commissioners Association. We hammered out this ordinance, this bill, this amendment. And if you look at the amendment, in every situation, it stipulated that you follow laws that are already on the books. This gave the county commissioners no new powers. All it did was codify it into one document. If you go look at the junk ordinance, everything in the junk ordinance is quoted from something that was already in the Constitution and references that. What it did give is the ability for the county commission to misinterpret or misapply the actual laws. There's nothing health and safety about somebody not liking the look of somebody's yard. I mean, if you think it's a health and safety issue, it's okay if you build a fence in front of it. That doesn't stop mosquitoes, that doesn't stop rats. It's just that the person who was offended is no longer offended. That's not health and safety, that's personal preference. And you have to ask yourself, where does it stop? Maybe I decided I didn't like it.
That is your personal opinion.
Yeah. And this junk ordinance is being interpreted by personal opinion. You have a junk officer who goes out and according to his opinion, this is a violation. And I'd like to point out also that we've had some people that have gone and looked at the records, and Moss Dalrymple has died of a heart attack, and we can argue about whether it was stress related to this or not, but there was no citation ever issued to him. So either the records have been sanitized, or the law was not followed. He was not issued a citation. He was supposed to have a weatherproof sign put out there. He never got that. The law was not followed, and that is where some of this abuse is coming. They're going out, they're intimidating people, they're scaring people. They're not doing it by the law.
Sir, I'd like to let the enforcement officers come in on your...
Good, I'd like to hear that.
You tell the situation with Mr. Dalrymple.
As far as Mr. Moss Dalrymple is concerned, we went there on a not being on a garbage pickup complaint. When we walked up, knocked on the door, and he came to the door, he made the first statement he made, I've been expecting you people. I know I've got a lot of junk around here. At that point, we informed him we were not there on the junk complaint. We had not received the junk complaint. The complaint we had received was strictly not being on garbage pickup only, which is altogether a different law. It sounds like you might have researched quite a bit. You know the difference. And we started talking to him, and he started telling us how bad he was feeling. He'd been sick. He was going to get on garbage pickup, but he just hadn't done it. At that point, we offered to carry him to the doctor, assist him in any way we could. We asked him if he had anybody that could help him. His statement to that was, I don't have anybody but this old dog. He's all I've got. And that was his statement. When we offered to carry him to the doctor, he said no, he'd wait and go in a few days. And we left him in good spirits. He asked us to come back and see him, come back and visit with me anytime you're in the area. As nice of a gentleman as I'd want to meet.
Have you seen the DVD that's been put out by the Marshall County people on this?
No, sir. Nobody.
Well, you need to watch it because there's testimony on there by his closest neighbors, his best friend. Now, I don't know what transpired, but I can tell you what Moss Dalrymple thought had transpired. He thought he had 10 days and he's going to lose everything he had. So we're talking about interpretation of the law. Well, interpretation of what happened to him, too. And we got his next door neighbor, and we've got it on the DVD. You need to look at it.
Does his next door neighbor claim he was there and heard the conversation?
He was there within an hour.
But was he there when the conversation took place?
No. Nobody was there except you three.
That's correct.
But we either have to accept your version or everybody else's version.
That's correct, too.
Richard King, Moss's neighbor of more than 25 years, and Drexel Phillips, Moss's friend of 20-plus years, tell what they know about the code enforcement officer's visit.
Moss understood them, what he was telling me. He said they gave me 10 days to clean everything up here, or they will come in here and do it for me, and I'll have to pay. So they'll take everything I've owned.
And your name is?
Drexel Phillips.
Right. And how long did you know Moss?
I've known him for 20-some odd years. Moss called me right after Cole and them left and told me about it. Stood there by the car and talked to me and my wife. He said he is a veteran of 3 wars, captured 4 times. He didn't none of that ever phase him compared to this. He said, Drexel, I'm telling you, this come the night driving me crazy of anything I've ever had to happen to me.
We told him straight up, don't worry about anything. You know, when you get feeling better, you go get on garbage. We have not had a complaint on your junk. And he went on and said, I've got a bad habit. I buy a lot of stuff and I just bring it in and park it here and just let it fall down. Like I said, this nice old fella, and we had no reason whatsoever, and we were not discourteous to that man. We treated him just as nice as we could treat him.
Well, I can't believe that as far as we've gotten in this controversy, that you have not seen the DVD. I don't know if any of you commissioners
Well,
have
if I'd
looked at
seen it, I'd tell you I saw it.
But, I mean, there's on film video of his neighbors testifying as to what happened.
That is hearsay.
And at the property.
That is hearsay.
So is his.
No.
So it's yours standing there.
That's an official.
Well,
He was standing there and heard it.
let's hold it down this minute. We need
I
to
was
stay-
there also.
We need to stay in order.
I was there also. My name's Susan Owen, and I am the other solid waste enforcement officer. And I was there also, and I talked to the sweet gentleman. And, you know, when we go out there and somebody's sick, we don't, you know, we're not out there harassing them or anything. But Tommy and myself was both there. We talked about his war record, the time that he had served. I also talked about my grandfather and my great-grandfather that had fought in World War I and World War II, okay? When we go out there to a sick person, you know, we either talk to them, we leave, but those people wasn't there. It was Tommy, myself, and Mr. Dyer. That was the only people that was there because neighbors were not there.
All I can tell you is he had a heart attack trying to change the battery on the tractor to move stuff to the back of his property. So in his mind, he definitely thought that you were coming after his property.
Mr. Freeman, how would you know what's on this Darrell?
That's what I'd like to know.
Did he tell you that, sir? Did he tell you that?
His neighbors and people that were there within an
His
hour.
neighbors are hearsay.
It's historical in
His
the state.
neighbors are hearsay.
On the following video clip, Moss's friend and neighbor tell what they heard Moss say.
Well, is that when he told you that if he'd known, you know, he never would have gone to war if he'd known it was going to turn out like this?
He said if he had known that they was going to do this to him, he never would have fought today.
That's exactly what he told me that day I come at lunch. Well, an hour or so before he died. That's exactly what he told me too.
That was the exact words. If he'd known it was going to turn out like this, he never would have fought a day.
Right.
That's what he told me and my wife standing right down there. Not 3 hours, over 3 hours before he died.
That's just pitiful.
I guess we need to stay on call on order. If we don't, it's going to get into a shouting match. If it does, we're going to be dismissed.
Well, this is not a court of law. None of us are psychologists or lawyers or anything else. So.
That's correct.
But this could be taken to a court of law if nobody likes this jumping ordinance and tested in court. So why don't y'all do that?
Well, the people that are being bothered by this do not have the money to hire lawyers and defend themselves.
But you recognize that was your opinion.
Can I have my turn? My arm is tired. Let me.
Sure.
I have a letter from the Marshall County Commission dated April 6, 2006, to the probate judge from Gilley County. Self-Governance Act. The voters on this issue will be those in the unincorporated areas of Marshall County. Towns of Grant and Douglas are unincorporated, so they will be able to vote on this. Anyone living outside the city limits of Arab, Appleton, Boaz, Thunderbolt can vote on this. Gilley County was aware these towns were incorporated, but it still chose to influence this election before it ever happened. I've got that. Also have a quote from Sonny Grassville, chairman of the County Commission Association of the State of Alabama. The county's bill effectively safety and health issues. It may convince the naysayers that local governments deserve more control. Ultimately, that could then give the counties the power to plan and zone, and yes, tax. That's a quote from Sonny Grassville from Birmingham News.
Okay, let me ask one question. Let me me get a copy of that, because I talked to Mr. Bradfield, and he said he did not remember anything about that. That way I can copy him on that.
Sure you can. It's from the Birmingham News. It's called, Limited Home Rule Law. It was most voted by Bob Wall.
But, Ken, after, don't care, let me get a copy of it, I'll get a copy of it.
But this I'm sorry, what? That's what everybody in this room voted for and against. That's what everybody in Marshall County voted for and against. That's what everybody in the state of Alabama voted for and against. Safety and health issues, mistrust in having neither belongs to Alabama.
But again, all I said was that your opinion.
No, that's what stretch what you have. Let me ask your opinion. Come up there. Stand up there. I've got a few photographs, and I'd like just you to look at them, if you don't mind. They're, just for time's sake, those look like maybe possibly safety and health issues. That's full of mosquitoes. Is a sink full of mosquitoes. Possibly safety and health issues. Mr. Mays, I don't mind, go ahead, just for time's sake, you go ahead and look at it. And I'm just saying possible. Could they be interpreted either way as safety and health issues?
You're asking for opinions.
Opinions, yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Lennon, opinions. A sink full of mosquitoes. Those pictures were taken in May. That sink's still there, full of mosquitoes.
Talking about the sink or the rest of it?
Any of them, all of them. Piled up wood, sink full of mosquitoes, iron, piles of iron. It's Mr. Cole's yard and the county commission shops. That's what I've given the pictures of.
Put up your own door.
Y'all clean up your own house before you bother us.
Mosquito trap.
Mosquito trap's still there. That's District 4. I'm sorry, Tim. You're just closest to my house.
Do you?
Pick on you.
Is that all you had, Ms. Bonner?
Ma'am.
Okay.
We've heard Mr. Cole's testimony that when he went to Mr. Moss Downing, that he talked about garbage pickup. Well, we have the Sand Mountain Reporter here, and it was well documented that that is not what he said to the Sand Mountain Reporter the day after Mr. Dalrymple died. I have a copy if you would like to see it. It was never mentioned about anything about the garbage pickup or anything like that. What he stated here today is not what was printed in the Sand Mountain Reporter 2 or 3 days after Mr. Moss Dalrymple was dead.
Would you like a copy?
I'll take the copy if you got one you want to give
You
out.
got a copy with you, Paul? Give them a copy.
All that, it's in the truck. I've got everything with me. My point being, is this. You have an officer that's going out there giving people 10 days. At the same day that he was at Mr. Moss Dalrymple's, he stopped at one other business on the left side of the road and verbally gave them a warning to clean up their place. If he gave a verbal warning to Mr. Moss, it doesn't matter. He is not going by the law. You have authorized a man, whenever an officer ascertains that junk is present upon the premises in such manner as to be a public nuisance, he or she shall cause a notice of sufficient size and weatherproofing to be placed upon the property. That's one of his first duties. He has not done that on Mr. Tresh, Mr. Jim Elliott, Moss Dalrymple, or any other that he has gone out. It does not say anything in this junk ordinance that he can verbally go out here and inflict his force upon these people and then come back and write an ordinance if they don't do what he said.
Would you rather be written a citation, give a limited number of days, or if he come out and ask you, you've got a problem here, would you like to clean it
The
up?
commission has said that they want to go by the law. They want to go by the law on the Limited Self-Governance Act because it was voted in. They want to go by the law on everything, but yet they do not obey the law themselves.
Okay. Are you requesting that this ordinance be enforced to the T?
If you're going to enforce, if the commission decides to enforce this law as it is written, you're enforcing the Limited Self-Governance Act as it was written. So therefore, you have to enforce all laws as they are written.
Right.
So you're telling us then that it's all right to go out here and agitate people.
No. Don't put agitation in, because we don't know that. Just making a request, just ask
Well, I would
them,
like to ask Mr. Cole.
notify them, that, you've got a problem, if you want to handle it, we'll be back in a few days, see if you're working on it.
Mr. Cole, do you go by the letter of this law?
I try my best to on that law.
If you go out there then and you decide that there is junk on someone's place, and you verbally tell them, have you gone by the law?
Mr. Brothers, if I go out there on a complaint of not being on garbage pickup, matter of fact, I don't even have to have a complaint to go on garbage pickup. If you're not on garbage pickup, I may pay you a visit any day.
Ms. Trish addressed intimidation as she wishes.
If you're through with all this, Trish, hold her hand up.
Yeah, my name's Jean Trish, and the first time Mr. Cole did come to my property, yes, I almost had a heart attack. They can ask both of them. I had to go in the house. My husband came out. He's in his underwear because he's a veteran. He's done had cancer, and he's got diabetes, and he's real sick, and I take care of him. But yes, I had to go back in the house because I was so shook up. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I had to go in the house because I could hardly breathe. Yes, it is very intimidating. I would call it a terroristic tactic to come onto somebody's property.
Ms. Trish.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so tired of hearing this double gibberish chatter.
Ms. Trish.
You just don't know. You had to live my life one day. You'd leave me alone forever. And that's all I got to say. Yes, it does bother me.
I request Ms. Trish to be removed.
That's not right.
I'll second.
I'll remove myself. No problem. But I'm telling you the truth, so help me God.
Miss Barnes, I think, had her hand up.
Section 7 of records says that it will be the duty of the officer to keep records of all incidents and investigations, including, but not limited to, all notices and citations issued, all correspondence to and from persons noticed or cited under this ordinance. I believe that an incident or an investigation would be a verbal warning. There are no records of any verbal warnings. Ms. Fleming, you know we spent 2 hours going through all records. There are no records of any verbal warnings. And if a verbal warning is not an incident, I would like your definition of what an incident is or the definition of what a verbal warning is. or an investigation,
See,
because
you-
that is separate from a notice or citation in the description.
All I can tell you, since you brought this to the attention, we will discuss it, look at it, and see if we agree with your opinion on that, and if so, we can make some.
You do not have the authority to agree with my opinion. This is the ordinance.
I'm talking about your interpretation of it.
I'm reading it, it's not an interpretation, sir.
Okay. Okay, point taken.
Sir, I'm Leo Baca. So let me just end it with saying that we have the right under the U.S. Constitution to petition government, which is you,
Yes.
to put things back on the ballot. And that is what we're doing. We were exercising our constitutional right to petition. Now, what is the problem about us petitioning?
I don't disagree with you having the right to do that. In there where you got junk, an antique car waiting for restoration.
Like I said, sir,
Piece of
that is
farm
your
equipment.
opinion. That is
No.
junk.
That's what the law says.
That's his opinion.
No, that's what the law says. The law says an antique car waiting for restitution, a piece of farm equipment used only occasionally. The law says we can't buy the farm equipment because it's covered under another section of the law. See, you're inflaming people by saying, you know, if you got if you got a car you gonna fix up, we want you to sign this piece of copy. They gonna come get your car. You got a piece of farm equipment out there. They gonna get you, have you clean that up because you got a piece of farm equipment. The inflammatory language that's used is what I have an objection to.
The language on it may not suit you, but like I said, that is your opinion.
That's
So,
correct.
if there's anything else wrong with this letter except our opinion, I don't see what the problem is. I really don't.
This gentleman back here in the black shirt.
I'm sorry. I'm Danny Henry from Tuscaloosa County, and we've been watching this situation up here with y'all for some time. And really, this is what got our bandwagon started in Tuscaloosa County because we got limited self-governance on us. We have not had a junk ordinance passed yet, although our commissioners are definitely looking at it. And this goes back to what the gentleman was talking about with antique vehicle. When you go back to the Code of Alabama, 1975, just about anything on your property can be construed as junk. And I think that's what everybody has a main problem with. And we've also talked about intimidation in here. Now, I don't know these officers by no means, never met them. But I'm 43 years old. I consider myself to be in good health, independent, work 45 hours a week, plus keep up with the family and everything. And these two officers, if they come on my property, as nice as they could be, tell me that I've got to get rid of some of my property with the weight of the government behind them, I'm intimidated, sir. And I don't want this in Tuscaloosa County, and I feel for the people of Marshall County right now. Like I said, y'all, this is an inspiration for us down in Tuscaloosa County. We don't want this down there. Thank you, sir.
Let me say this, we've got 3 people that have had their hands up. We'll discuss it with them, and we'll give the commissioner an opportunity to say something, and we'll call the meeting to an end. Mr. Freeman?
Well, it appears what we're talking about here. There is a reluctance, I've heard it in your voice and other people's voice, to go out and issue a citation to everybody. You know, you said yourself it would be better. Would you prefer to just have a verbal warning? You know, but what you're talking about, sir, is you know, selective enforcement, which is illegal. If you enforce this junk ordinance to the full extent of the law, you would have people storming this courthouse and storming you. But what you're doing, or what it's doing inadvertently, is people are selected because they're poor or whatever the situation is, but you're not implementing the law as it's written, you're not implementing it in full force, and if you did, it would apply to a lot more people, and you would certainly be paying a lot more attention to it.
We're paying attention to it, and we're enforcing the ones that get complaints on. What it's doing is just trying to work with people and give them the opportunity before they have to go into the court system.
Directed to Mr. Freeman. You mentioned a few minutes ago that just because people were poor, that we may go out and enforce the law on them. If you don't know me, and I don't know you, I've been in law enforcement 44 years, and I'll put my reputation up against anybody, any officer that you want to bring up here. I would never, have never enforce any law on anybody just because they're poor. I've helped many a poor person, many one over the years. And I can go across this county and tell you, I would never do that. Thank you.
Gene Trish, the Marshall County property owner evicted from this meeting, would not agree with the code enforcement officer's statement.
But I got $800 and something a month to live on, and it ain't enough to pay your utilities, let alone buy groceries. And they've got me under so much stress. If you look at my driver's license, I've aged 10 years in the last one.
You say they issued you the citation before they even passed the...
Yeah, it was in the Gleam. Somebody named, I think his name was Robert Barnes, Ray Barnes. Kathy's husband, I don't know.
Ray Barnes.
Yeah. He wrote a nice article in the Gleam about it. He said he felt sorry for that woman on 1140 Road because they had signed the citations and everything. They were ready to come out and arrest me right then and on the spot. And he wrote an article how they were doing wrong, so they had another vote to make it legal. How can it be legal when it was illegal to begin with that you voted on it? I don't get it. But...
in other words, they had you targeted before they even passed the ordinance.
Right. Yeah. They did this to my grandfather when I was like 4 years old. They took his land in Huntsville. They just come in, they say, you're poor, you have no money for a lawyer, slam, we're taking your land. And we had to go. I remember the wrecking ball coming and destroying my grandfather's house. And he was crying and said, you'll destroy me before you take my house. But they took his house. I'm sorry. And I feel they're doing the same thing to me. And they're just saying, well, she ain't got no money. This is an easy take. They're just like they're the Nazis. You know, my eyes ain't blue enough. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm doing the best I can, and if it's not good enough... That's another thing. Riley just got an award for supposedly helping the homeless get out from under the bridge. Well, then why are you trying to take my humble home and put me there? Because that's the only place I got left is under the bridge if they take this from me. And if they find my Jesus Save Me signs offensive, I'm so sorry. It's the only one I know to call on.
Yeah, I know they some at the woman's speak. I said they made a statement a while ago, we had three that wanted to say something after they have to give the commissioner the opportunity to say something.
Well, since he addressed me, I'd like to respond to that.
Okay.
That opinion is derived, sir, from the cases that we have had brought to us where people were looking for assistance. And the other cases I have no knowledge of.
And those cases were, like the chairman said, strictly on complaints. And not just one complaint on most of them, one or several complaints on some of them.
Do you publish a record of who's been issued citations either verbally or on paper?
Mine has never been verbally until they bring it up to me and I inform them if I'm there for that purpose. I'm not. And most of the time, I have not heard anything about a complaint on their junk. It's been not being on garbage pickup.
What that actually says is it can either be put back before people by a petition or by the county commission. You can do it too, just like you can put the junk ordinance on the ballot. The county commission had the ability to do that. You do not have the ability, though, Paul, to stop implementing.
That was one of the statements in that letter. It said we had refused to put it on.
Well, you have refused to put it back on the ballot.
There's nobody asked me, would I be willing to put it back up for a vote?
You were asked here 3 times today, and I've heard it before.
Did you ask me personally, or did you?
Well, who in here, somebody I heard ask you several times.
No, I think they asked Commissioner Strickland, Commissioner May said he was for it.
Well, did you have wax in your ears or didn't you hear it? They were addressing everybody.
Okay, I've got wax in my ears, I know that for a fact.
Put this back on the ballot.
48 months.
Therefore, you are subject to a referendum being set. Now, it doesn't matter if all of us people get out here and get the petition. You have the authority now. Would it not be better for y'all representing the people of Marshall County to go ahead and ask for another referendum and get a true count, since there was only 6,300 people that voted?
That's no.
I'd like to address Mr. Philworth's comment about people living in the city and others that have said people having rights to move into the county, where these complaints come from. Specifically, the complaint against Ms. Jean Trash had a bogus address on it. This is not something that should happen. That should be addressed. It should, when a person comes in and files a complaint, you should be sure that the person filing that complaint is who they say they are and that they live at the address they say they live. Because Paul and I proved with you that the address on that complaint was invalid. It does not exist. There are complaints with identical handwriting with different signatures. I'll show them to you if you want to see them.
That ordinance was passed, it's a state ordinance, I mean, the law was passed in an election, it has to be done if we follow the orders. Is that right, Mr. Freeman? It'd be 4 years before it can be voted on?
4 years from the date it was voted in.
Which would be after the June 2000.
But the enthusiasm with which you enforce it is certainly subject to your jurisdiction.
Right.
You know, I mean, from the discussions here, it's obviously a flawed bill. It had a lot of problems. Just because it happened to get by doesn't mean that it's something that a man representing the people should be pushing.
I think the lady over here has been holding her hand up.
Yeah, I'd just like to respond to Ms. Edmonds, I believe it is, statement that she made. What I got is you were implying that people from the county didn't want the junk ordinance, but that people from the city that had moved into the county?
No, that's not what I was implying at all. I just said they illegally voted in something that was for only unincorporated areas, that everything written on it said it only applied to unincorporated areas and only voters in the unincorporated area could vote on it. But people in the incorporated areas across this county voted on it. That should have thrown it out immediately.
That's not what I
Are we ready?
Mr. Home Rule.